No, 10 o'clock. All right. First off, if you've seen this before, it's the same thing. It hasn't changed. So, I guess maybe if you didn't take notes and you want to take notes this time, that's great. But the materials and the delivery are going to be exactly the same. I said it was a little bit early, but I do need something for my throat. Keep that in mind. All right. I'm Uncle Kage. You probably knew that. I'm not just an entertaining drunk on YouTube, but I also write. I write short stories because I have short attention span. My works appeared in Doll Fantasy, a couple of collections that Mercedes Blackie put out, titles such as Flights of Fantasy, Elemental Magic, and Elementary. And then Fur Planet, the wonderful, wonderful furry publishers out there. The late Fred Patton put together some collections. Furry Future Gods with Fur. I can go on and on and on. You can look at my resume. So yeah, I write. And what I'd like to do today is tell you that your high school English teacher was right. Everything that you were told back then was true. Probably explained in a very dull and dreary and boring fashion. So I'm going to try to repair that right now. Let's talk about stories. A story has three basic elements: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Any questions? Class dismissed. Thank you very much. Actually, there's a little bit more to it than that. Let's start even before that, before the beginning. You've got a story in your head, and you want to put that story into somebody else's head. That's why writing was invented. Let's talk about the story itself. This is a furry convention. We're all furries. By the way, I'm going to piss off the guy with the camera because I can keep talking. I pace when I talk. I don't know why. We're all furries, so it's very, very likely that it's a furry story that you have in your head. I see this so many times. You have you have Dale, and Dale is a cheetah, right? And he works as an accountant at a soul-crushing, heartless accounting firm, and his job is shit, and his life is shit, and he's just totally miserable. Then he meets Sarah, who is another cheetah, and he's like, oh boy, this is really great. There's more to life than just my career and all this. There can be sunshine even amongst a cloudy day, and they live happily ever after. The end. Okay, lovely story. Here's my question. Why the hell were they cheetahs? What was the point in them being cheetahs? I asked the author, why are they cheetahs? I like cheetahs. Okay, good. I like trains. I don't have a train working in the accounting office. The great writer Kyle Gold refers to these as zipperback stories because you might as well have a fursuit. If you can take your story when it's done, and in good old Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program you like to use, you can do a global find and replace. And you can replace the word cheetah with the word plumber, and you have functionally the same story, then you've done it wrong. You guys are furries. By definition, you are among the most remarkably inventive, incredibly imaginative people on the face of the earth. Use it. You have got so much going on in that gray mush up there. Put that into your story. Why is your runner a cheetah? Okay, that's it. He's a runner. That's it. He's a professional runner. And maybe he's being accused of doping at the Olympics. Dude, I'm a cheetah. I don't need to do that. I mean, that's what I do. I run. But the fact that he's a cheetah is now integral to the story. If you go and you talk about the plumber who's running and accused of doping, that doesn't work so good, no. So, you got your story. You want the fact that your character is furry to be part of the story, to be the reason for the story. One of the finest pieces of furry fiction out there, which is all but lost. It is no longer on the internet, The only place that I know it exists is in a book collection, and I think Rabbit Valley put it out. Another Fred Patton collection called Best in Show. And it's not in print anymore. If you can find it, for goodness sake, get it. The story is by Todd Sutherland, and it is called Wings. Wings. That is the story of an anthropomorphic canine. Gee, so why the hell is she a canine? What's the point? The point is, she exists in the story in a slightly, somewhat Black Mirror-esque near future to serve as a companion animal for a handicapped child. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. A service dog that can not only tell you that the light's red, but tell you what the name of the intersection is, and then remind you, oh, we've got a doctor's appointment at 4 o'clock. I'll make sure to get us there. It's perfect. You have a furry story, and there is a very, very good reason for your character to be furry. I was doing a lot of talking last night. I don't know why. Anyway, you got your story now, and you got a great idea, because it's a furry story, and there's a good reason for my character to be furry. That's nice. Now I'm going to write the story. John was a 6 1/2 foot tall wolf morph with blazing yellow eyes and black fur. Oh, please, God, don't do that. Don't do that. Let me explain something. Back when I was your age, some of us, we didn't have this internet thing. If you wanted to read a story, furry or otherwise, incidentally, for speaking purposes, I've got the mask taken off. If this is troublesome to folks on the front row, let me know and I'll stay behind the table. I do tend to wander around. These days, one must break these things. And that's indeed. Anyway, if you wanted to read a story, you had to get this thing, we called it a book. Imagine an analog Kindle. And it was essentially a bunch of printed pages bound together. And in order to find one of these so-called books, you had to go to a bookstore, right? And you would go to the bookstore, and you would pick up one of these books, as we call them, and you would open it to the first page. You've got $1.95 in your pocket, $1.95 in your pocket, and you go to the first page. John was a 6 1/2 foot tall wolf morph with blazing yellow eyes and black. Next! It's boring. You're just describing the character at the first page. I don't need that. You need something to get the reader's attention. This is what your high school English teacher was so desperately trying to tell you while you were drawing foxes in the margin of your notes. Yeah, I know, you guys are furries, I know what you were doing. You can still take notes. Okay, good. Sometimes wonder if I may be late. Anyway, any good story has to have a hook. There's got to be something in the first paragraph, the first page. When they pick up that so-called book and they start reading, you've got to make them want to keep reading. Whether it's a web page, whether it's a story on the internet, whether it's on your Kindle, the person's going to put it down and move on if you don't get their attention. All the best tales out there have good openings. Like that.
Pardon me.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. You don't know about me without what read a book called The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. That book was written by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth, mainly. As Gregor Samsa awoke one morning from uneasy dreams, he found that he had been transformed in his bed into a monstrous insect. True! True! Very and now, why would you say that I'm mad? That's Poe. You can talk a lot about Poe. Call me Ishmael. Scholars have been discussing those 3 words for 175 years or so. Remarkable. Just 3 words. That's the beginning of the story. Call me Ishmael. Herman Melville, Moby Dick. What is it? Across time, across the veil that separates fiction from our world, this character is reaching out, holding out his hand, greeting you. Hi. Call me Ishmael. And somehow, having had this character introduce himself, we now want to know him better. We got to know Melville better. Because now we come to the next part. You've got a good start. You've got a story where your character is furry, and there's a damn good reason for the character being furry. Now you've got a good start. You've got a hook. You've got a wonderful opener that the reader's going to say, damn, I got to read more of this. Now here's the hard part. Because the middle, that's 90% of your story. You've heard of the story arc. It's not just an expression. The story arc is how every story, whether I am telling it to you, whether you're watching a movie, whether you're reading a book, the story arc has that start, bam, oh, I'm hooked. I'm not going to get up and leave now. And then it climbs. Action is happening, things are happening, events are unfolding, more and more and more, drawing your reader in, keeping them engaged until you reach the climax, the car chase, the explosion, the plane crash. Then you have the denouement. That's a French word. The French call it the denouement. In English, we call it the denouement. Because it's such a great word, why come up with a new? So, bam! Story rises to the climax, and then the denouement to the conclusion. In following that rise, all those things that your high school English teacher told you, which I'm telling you now are true, you had to remember, there has got to be some form of conflict. It doesn't have to be World War Z. It can be the internal conflict. It can be indecision. It can be just a character suffering the weight of the world. But without some kind of conflict, it's going to get boring real fast. I guess that says something about human nature. And people say, write what you know. I'm going to say, no, don't do that. No. If your high school English teacher told you that, he'd been drinking that morning. Don't write what you know. Let me explain. Call me Ishmael. We've met Ishmael. He is on his way to Nantucket. He's a whaler. He's going to sign aboard a whaling vessel, make some money. So he arrives late at night at the Spouter Inn, which is still there, by the way. Ishmael checks into the Spouter Inn. Now, this is not the Marriott, Indianapolis East here. This is a 19th century inn where you don't book a room, you book a spot in a bed. Maybe not so different. Never mind, I'm not going to go down that road. Anyway, you book a spot in a bed for a couple shillings. So he gives the innkeeper a shillings, he goes up there. He's lucky at first because right now he's the only guy there. Midway through the night, here comes Queequeg. Queequeg is, forgive me, what Melville called in his 19th century parlance a savage from the islands, a Pacific island. Queequeg comes in, climbs into bed with Ishmael. Ishmael wakes up in the morning and Queequeg is hugging him. We think we know a little bit about Melville these days that they didn't think about back then. Okay. He would have loved this convention. Anyhow, so Queequeg and Ishmael, they head down to the docks, and there's the Pequod, right? Hey, there's a whaling vessel. We should sign aboard that. That's a great idea because we're whalers. Let's do that. But in the way, there's this crazy old guy in a lab coat. He comes in, hey, I am Isaiah, yonder is Ahab. He will rise and beckon, and all safe one will be lost. And Queequeg says, dude, he's on meth. Don't talk to him. Don't look him in the eye. Don't give him any money. Just keep on. Nice to see you. Goodbye. So they get up on the Pequod, and there yonder we see Ahab. He looks just like Gregory Peck, and he's up there saying, the best boys took the strawberries. Wait, wrong story. He's up there shouting about the whale. I'm going to go kill this whale because he bit my leg off, and that pissed me off, so I'm going to kill the whale. Good reason. There's your conflict, by the way. Okay, you've read that far. You're at about page, if I remember right, about page 74. I want you to count forward 115 pages. From page 74, count forward 115 pages and rip it out. Moby Dick is a book that thick. Now it's Moby Dick the pamphlet. Rip out those pages, throw them out. You don't need them. Why? Because starting on page 75, Melville, who decided write what you know, he was a whaler himself, spends all that time describing the loading of cargo and provisions into a 19th century Nantucket whaling vessel. That this goes here and this, okay, you can't put this next to these things, and this, you've got to have airspace between these. These go with the bow, these go with the stern. After about page 63, it's like, okay, I've had enough of the damn hardtack. Can we get to the good part? You know what you're waiting for. You're waiting for the rushing Nantucket sleigh ride and the whale preaching and spouting, and yonder is Ahab rising and beckoning. A great writer. And somewhere, I'm going to have to remember who the hell it was. Because I've given this talk a number of times and I have not yet found the quote, but I remember seeing it somewhere. Maybe. There's a lot of things I remember seeing that I can't trace now. But anyhow, a great writer once said, every word in that story must point to that climax. If there is something in your story that doesn't contribute to the climax, it's excessive, it's gratuitous. You don't need it. Take it out. You can write. You have a question?
I was asking, are you referring to like the Chekhov's gun sort of thing?
Chekhov's guns?
Yeah.
Chekhov's guns, Melville's loading of provisions. Writers get bogged down. Because, yeah, I am interested in this thing, and I'm going to write about it. Your reader's not interested. Your reader wants to get to the damn whale, all right? The book is called Moby Dick. And like I said, we learned something about Melville. It's got Dick right in the title. Come on. Yes?
The reference to Chekhov's gun has to do with, like, if a gun is seen in Act 1, somebody needs to be shot by Act 3. It has to do with foreshadowing.
Good point. I was going to get to that later, but all right. Sorry, you stepped on my foot. Yes. If the gun is there, you mentioned there's a gun on the table. Unless you're writing a detective novel and you want to throw a red herring in. Don't write detective novels. Every single detective novel that's ever going to be written has been written. Don't try. So, if there is something that doesn't belong there, you need to get rid of it. And nowhere is this more heinous than the sex scene. I would like you all to repeat after me in unison. Sex is a plot device. It is not a plot.
Sex is a plot device. It is not a plot.
Thank you very much. Ian Fleming, wonderful writer. James Bond, 007. Went from books into movies, and then the movies just became parodies of themselves. Here we've got, James Bond, he's on like a, rocket-powered motorized tricycle with lasers shooting out of it, and he's chasing after Dr. Blofeld, who's sitting there driving while petting his cat, and he's driving, and then all of a sudden, wait, with some woman with a weird name, and then back to the tricycle, and it's like, what was that? That was the part of every James Bond movie I got up and I went to get popcorn. Now you see how old I am. I got bored of it. As soon as I said, get rid of the sex scene, he got up and left. Did you notice that? Because if you need to have those characters in an intimate circumstance because it is part of the story, then that's fine. Spoiler alert, the movie Terminator. There's this, just in the middle, a gratuitous sex scene. What the hell's that for? We find out at the end, they needed to. Because that basically, well, if you haven't seen it. First off, if you haven't seen it, get out from under your rock, okay? Or do they even show movies anymore? You can destroy a very, very good story just because your hormones went off balance one day and you had to write a sex scene in there. We know that Melville, we know that he was a little, ragingly hormonal in his time. Imagine that last scene. Imagine that great climactic scene of Moby Dick when the Pinkwad has been stove in. There's only like a single whaleboat left and men in the water. They see the whale rise and clinging to the scarred hide is Captain Ahab, literally hanging on to the whale. And as they watch, he grabs a broken harpoon, and that magnificent monologue that gave Gregory Peck his Oscar, he starts stabbing from hell's black heart. I stab at thee, for hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee. I just can't quit you, Moby Dick. See how that changes the scene? It kind of takes away from it, doesn't it? Some people out there, I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, that's how the scene should have just stayed. You don't need the sex scene. Get rid of it. You have a scene you really like, if it doesn't fit the story, you're not going to throw it away. Save it in a file somewhere and put it in a different story where it does belong. Do not ruin a good story with a good scene that just doesn't fit. So as you're telling your story, you want to try to cut out words that don't matter. And here we run into something called exposition. You hear that word a lot. Does everybody really know what it means? Exposition is when you simply offer a, I hate to say it, bland description of the room. I have this room here, and what do I want to tell the people about the room? I walked into the room. There were 2 chandeliers. There was an air wall on either side and a solid wall on the back. The wallpaper in the back was really ugly, and there was a door with a weirdo handle on it. And the room measured 25.5 feet by 40.35 feet. I've seen this in stories. What is the point? Is it important to know that there were 2 chandeliers? Don't get stuck in the trap of, I have a picture in my head, and I want to put that picture into the head of my reader. Let the reader make his own picture. How do you do that? Just give him enough information. I stepped through the door and damn near bumped my head on the chandelier. What's that tell you about the room? 1, it's got a chandelier. 2, probably got a really low ceiling. Or a really tall person. Little tricks you can do just like that. If you've not established the height, actually very good, very tall person, what you can then say is, I made my way to the front. Made my way to the front. Kind of implies that the room is fairly big. Now maybe we got the idea that you do have a very tall person. Cracked my forehead on the door jamb again. would think I would have learned by now. The English language is remarkably colorful. And I've used for many years what I call the color of words. As an artist can mix pigments and come up with any color in the spectrum, any color imaginable to the human eye. You can do that with words. And by picking the right word or the wrong word, you can change the entire scene. You can set the scene. You can create tension. Do you have to go into a long explanation as to what kind of a day your character is having as he makes his way to the door? I can sit there and say, I had been having this kind of day because I did not have coffee and this happened and blah, 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 blah. Or a simple sentence. The sentence describing going to the door. Now remember, we have very, very colorful words. There's a book out there called a thesaurus. Throw it away. It is useless to you. Unless you know exactly what every one of those words means already. The thesaurus is meant to be a guide, to remind you. It is not meant to be a resource where you can just use a different word for walk because you don't want to say walk too many times on one page. But now we want to set the scene just by describing going to the door. I'll describe going to that door because I have more room. Okay, he walked to the door. He shuffled to the door. He crept to the door. He edged his way to the door. He staggered to the door. That's mine. He stumbled to the door. He crawled to the door. Just by changing that verb, changing the action of going to the door, I've told you a lot about the character, haven't I? Whether he's happy, he danced to the door, he skipped to the door, he sidled to the door, he sauntered to the door. Whether he's scared, whether he's upset, whether it's 10:30 in the morning and he started on the wine. You've got an infinite amount of color in these words. Use it. I gave this talk in Ohio about 3 years ago. And when I was finished, a young fellow came up to me and said, "Uncle Kage, would you read my story and tell me what you think?" This always makes me a little cringy. Because I'm a writer. And if you show me a story, in my mind, it's because you want me to tell you if you've done it right, at least in the opinion of this writer. Please don't show me a story because you want me to tell you it's good. If you want that, show it to your mom. She'll put it on the refrigerator. How nice. If you show another writer a story, they're going to tell you what they think. Not because they don't like you, not because they want to ruin your day, because they think this is a pretty good story. I'd like to see it better. I'd like to improve it. There's a mistake here. This guy showed me the story. And after everything I had told him, it started out with the line, John was a 6-foot-tall German shepherd wearing a police uniform sitting in a police car. And I thought, I failed. And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Okay, first off, that's not really going to keep people's attention. There's not a lot in that sentence. Maybe in the next sentence along there's something, but..." And I said to him, "Okay, we're going to try an experiment. And you guys can do this on your own. It's a fun little mental exercise. Write a page. Just take a page. And people say, how many words is a page? I don't know, it's your page. Make up as many words as you want. I'm not the boss of you. But write a page. And in that page, I want a character. And I want you to make it very clear to me, the reader, what that character's species is, what his job is, and what he's wearing, without using the words of the species, without using the word that describes the job, and without using any words that describe the clothing. You can do this using the context the character is in. Do I have to say he was a police officer? No, I can give you that idea. That's a lot more interesting to the reader. Yes?
Well, I mean, you could think of these in terms of, like, what do you actually do when it's this job? Like, why does it matter that you got this job?
Yeah.
So instead of saying John was a policeman driving a police cruiser, you can just say, you know, John switched on the flashing blue and red lights as he...
Excellent. And I did just that. Because I said to the kid, I said, look, I'd like to rewrite your opening paragraph, if that's okay. And I'll show you what I mean. And he said, sure. And I said, first off, is your heart set on calling him John? He said, no. I said, thank God. Thank God. Two things. One, never call your character John. Number two, I don't care what the hell fantasy world you're made up. Don't put an apostrophe in your character's name. It's really damn tires. Leave out the apostrophes in the names, okay? So I took his opening sentence and I said, Klaus rolled down the window of the squad car and asked the nearest punk for a light. He received it from shaking hands. They were always perfect little angels once they saw his teeth. Okay, what do we have in there? Number one, there's something about his teeth. Klaus, that implies a Germanic creature. Now, I might in the next sentence throw a little something in about his partner making a quip about a tennis ball and Klaus giving him a dirty look. It's pretty obvious he's a cop. And pretty obvious he's a very effective one. There's something about his mere appearance. So I sent the kid off with that, and I hope that the rest of the story followed suit. Let's see. Anything else about creating that story arc? Plenty of time. Pause right now and say, are there any questions to this point before we reach the climax? Yes?
What is wrong with the name John?
What?
What is wrong with the name John?
Every single damn furry story I've sent, the character's name is John, and I'm sick of it. Sorry, if your name is John, that's fine. God bless you. You know, my brother-in-law's name is John, but he's not a 6 1/2 foot tall wolf morph with blazing yellow eyes and jet black fur. Oh, please don't do that to me. Yes.
So, for some stories, it would probably be easy to describe what the species is through context, but for more unique anthro-species, how would you go about describing them? Like wolves are very common, but another canine type, like a hyena, without just straight up saying they're a hyena, you know?
If you cannot, you can try a little bit. Never liked taking him to dinner. He had this really bad habit of chewing and cracking open the bones when we were done. Something like that. Or you can throw in a little playful something, like you're carrying my drunk friend home, and he's staggering, drooling all over me. Some passing guy says, "Nice dog." He's a hyena. Thank you very much.
I like that. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just don't say he was a hyena.
Right.
Yes.
I was just going to, a thought occurred to me in regards to that question. You could also go and make a point of the fact that he had this really annoying laugh.
Yes.
He always laughed at like the most inappropriate things, and
you could hear it in the next theater.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think one good thing to do with more unusual characters would be to describe how they do something differently from other characters. Like, Jimmy always got annoyed at having to climb up all these stairs because it was tricky to do with his talons.
Yep. And how would a hyena drink a glass of wine? dropping the tongue in and slopping it all over the table. We can have lots of fun just describing what a hellish experience it is going out on the town with our friend. But he is just so damn lonely and so pitiful when he looks at us with those eyes. What are you going to do? You know, we're friends. You kind of have to take the good with the bad. Even if, you know, halfway home, when he falls in the gutter, you got to explain to people why there's bone marrow all over his shirt. It's a cultural thing. Yes?
I was going to say for one is I'm always hitting the ceiling of my cousin's house.
Yeah. Yep.
Every time.
You're always hitting the ceiling. Once again, either I'm very tall or my cousin is not. Tolkien, describing the Hobbit hole, did a very, very good job. And you could tell that Peter Jackson had fun with that same description when Gandalf comes in and he's, you know, obviously trying to be very polite, but the fact is he's uncomfortable as all get out. Because, let's face it, he's what, 9,000 years old? His back has got to hurt like hell. And now he's got to be in here with this little shrimp. Oh, jeez. Anyhow, all right. Now, oh, yes, one more, then we'll move on to the climax, yes.
Well, when you're talking about the hyena, why a hyena?
Exactly.
Could you maybe want to go on as to why it is special for a hyena rather than a different character in the story?
Why a hyena? Very, very good question. I hope there's a reason. And you can also throw in, what does he do for a living? He's a mortician. And maybe that can be the unspoken question the whole way through. Every time it's mentioned he's a mortician, people kind of shuffle a little uncomfortably. And possibly he's got a really stupid sense of humor. You know, when he's preparing the body or something. He might say, you know, it's unfortunate that I'm in the kind of business where you can't accept gratuities. So come to the climax. Boom! The volcano erupts. The car crashes. The plane crashes. If you've ever seen the movie Con Air, Con Air is an incredible movie because it is made up of climaxes. It's one climax after another. If you're looking for a story, screw Con Air. It's stupid. If you just want to see, oh, let's have a plane crash, and a car crash, and a prison break, and another plane crash, let's have 3 plane crashes. Let's just do it every 10 minutes. It's definitely a pulse pounder. It's a great drinking game. Watching Con Air. Anytime you reach the climax of the movie, take a shot. You'll be dead by the time we get to that wonderful scene with the little girl having the tea party. And the serial child killer comes up and she says, "Do you want to join my tea party?" And he smiles. From a literary standpoint, that's a remarkable scene. Because he just smiles. You don't have to show anything. You know what's happened. At least you think you do. Just wait for the next climax. I actually like the movie, but definitely do the drinking game. Okay, now we have the denouement. We've got to tie things together. Before you reach that ending, regarding that ending and tying things together, it is not necessary to take the last page and a half of your story, the last 10 minutes of your movie. It is not necessary to have to tie up every single detail that you have created, Mr. Lucas. It doesn't work like that. Leave a little bit of room for your reader to decide themselves. there are some very, very good endings out there. And the deep and dank tarn at my feet closed sullenly and silently over the fragments of the house of Usher. I mentioned Todd Sutherland's story, Wings. That is the last word of the story. Just that word. Wings. You'll have to find the story to find out why. Have a box of tissues. You will need it. I mentioned Poe. I love Poe. Not only was he a twisted MF, but my gosh. First off, yeah, he loved his absinthe. And we're pretty sure he was an opium smoker, too. Just read his stuff. It's like, what shall I write about today? Flowers, chirping birds, trees. No, let's write about people being buried alive. Okay. Very nervous. Very, very nervous was I then, and am now. Why would you say that I'm mad? He goes to recount the story of how he took a dislike to his roommate simply because the guy had a funky eye. All right, yeah, there's probably a few things going on in this poor kid's coconut. But he gets so bent out of shape over his poor roommate's eye that he kills him. Kills him and plans the murder down to the last detail. Cuts the body up in a big tub so blood is all caught. Puts the pieces of the body under the floorboards, nails it down so carefully, so expertly that nobody could tell they'd ever been pulled up, and puts a rug over it, puts a little table on it, puts some flowers on it. No, doesn't even do that. Just nails the floorboards. You don't need the rug, you don't need the table, you don't need the flowers. He's just finishing up, and there's a knock at the door. And he opens it, and there's the police, 3 cops. They say, your neighbor heard some screaming coming. What's going on? He says, I had one hell of a nightmare, Jesus. It's one of the most vivid ones I've ever had. I haven't been sleeping well lately. The cops say, don't you have a roommate? Where's he? Oh, he took off for Europe 2 days ago. He's on a business trip. I expect him back probably around November. So the cops say, okay, well, you try to get some sleep, sorry to bother you. And he's thinking, I got away with it. And he's so elated having got away with it, he's getting all like, oh, look at me, I got away with freaking murder. So he says to the cops, hey guys, no need for you to run off. I mean, why don't you come in? You're on duty, but you can still have a little drink, right? That's fine, we're all friends here. So he sits him down right in front of the spot where he hid the body. And he is in his mind, he's just strutting around, and he's telling stories, and they're drinking brandy and having a wonderful party. And the whole time he is thinking, I am so much the man. And he's telling the cops this story. It's like, the hell? It's coming from under the floor. And it's getting louder and louder. That's a heartbeat. It's very obviously a heartbeat. He's got to be dead. I cut him to pieces, right? Then how's his heart still beating? And how come these guys don't hear it? They're sitting there smiling at me. And this is so loud, it's ringing in my ears. I have to raise my voice to even talk above it. And these guys are just sitting, smiling and nodding. They hear it. Oh, you know they hear it. They're dicking with me. These sons of bitches are screwing with me. That's what's going on here. Villains, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. There, tear up the planks. It's the beating of his hideous heart. It's the end of the story. Do you need to go into the trial and no. That's all you need to know. It's an excellent, excellent story. Now, I will skip my diatribe on Hemingway because it will ruin my voice. I tend to scream angrily because Hemingway was, both as a writer and a human being, a steaming pile of shit. That is my opinion, and I am entitled to it. Now, I am going to tell you about what I feel is one of the best furry stories I have ever read. With one tiny caveat. It appeared in a collection called Historomorphs, put out damn near 20 years ago now, I guess. The writer was one Tom Nugent. Any of you guys Tom Nugent? Didn't think so. Okay. I will state categorically that this was the best story I had ever read in my life. Here's why. It starts with our character, lonely, miserable, sitting in his little shelter, not even a home, and he's brushing his tail. It's one of the few little tiny comforts he has, because back in his home across the ocean, he was considered hot stuff. He was the cock of the walk. He was the man about town. Because in his culture, that big, giant, full, fluffy tail, that's the measure of male beauty. And his tail was perfect. But here he is in a land where not only does nobody appreciate his tail, which is really his only pride, but they don't even acknowledge him as a person. He's an alien to them. He's not even human. This place he came to hoping to find a better life, but he finds himself outcast. He finds himself lonely, miserable. We get the idea, very masterfully done, we get the idea that he is something akin to a snow leopard and he comes from Tibet. And he has immigrated to this new world. He finds himself in the city of Boston in 1775. And it's not what he was hoping it would be. He is completely disenfranchised. And what happens to miserable, lonely, outcast, disenfranchised youth? They tend to be attracted to revolutionaries. This crowd of insurgents hook up with this kid. They treat him nice. They treat him like a person. They treat him with respect. And he develops quite an affinity for them. And inevitably, we find out that they need him for something. What do we need him for? Okay, kid, listen. We think that the British regulars are going to make a move tonight. We don't know where they're coming from. We need to know that so we can be ready for them. We need somebody to put a signal in the Old North Church. We need someone who is naturally insulated against the chill of a Massachusetts night in early April. We need somebody who can see in the dark. We need somebody who can move silently on padded feet. Remember I said that there's got to be some reason for your character to be furry? I was like doing cartwheels, hurt my back, but damn, it was worth it. So this kid agrees. The appointed time comes. He climbed the tower of the Old North Church by the wooden ladder with stealthy tread. It startled the pigeons from their perch, the belfry chamber over him. And he's sitting up there. Cold doesn't bother him. He's used to it. He can see the entire town. He can see all the way down the Charles River, all the way down to the bay. And he can even see with those keen eyes of his in that dim light, the British flag flying on the man of war, the Somerset, way out there at the mouth of the river. But it's dark, and it's quiet, and he's alone with his thoughts, and his thoughts start to turn a little ominous. He hadn't really thought this through. What if this doesn't work? I mean, that is the finest military force the world has ever seen out there. These guys are a bunch of farmers, and that silversmith, what was his name? Paul guy. They don't know how to... They're probably going to get caught. And if they do, they're going to get hanged. If they hang them, what are they going to do to me? And he starts to get very, very scared, starts to get very, very upset, very nervous. He's thinking, I need to call this off. I can't go through with this. I don't want to die. And he is just about the point where he's going to bolt. And his keen eyes catch something moving, a line coming from the Somerset, row of boats, the regulars coming up the river. And he's trying to remember the signal. It was 1, 2, okay, he's flustered. I think 2. Yeah, 2. I can hang 2 lanterns. That's what it is. His hands are shaking violently. He gets out his tinder box because you didn't have matches or lighters back then. He gets out and he drops the tinder, and it lands and the box clatters on the stone floor of the church. And he's like, "Did anybody hear that? If anybody heard that, I'm dead." And he waits about 30 seconds and he doesn't hear anybody coming. All he has is his flint and his steel. And he doesn't have any tinder. He tries to light some of the wood up there, but it's not catching. He can't light the lanterns. There's nothing to ignite. And the regulars are getting closer, and he doesn't have anything that he can catch. In desperation, he grits his teeth and lights his tail. He ignites the fur on his tail and, sobbing from the pain, uses it to light the lanterns. You know the rest from the books you've read, how the British regulars fired and fled. The next night, this kid is sitting in the corner of the tavern, and he's looking at the scorched and scarred and blackened remains of his tail. And that, whatever the hell, Paul guy, whatever his name is, comes up, puts his hand on the kid's shoulder and says, you really saved the day. If we didn't know that they were coming, we'd all be swinging right now. And the kid nods, and Paul looks at his tail and he says, I'm really sorry about that. And the kid says, no, it's okay, it'll grow back. No! 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 It's not gonna grow back, you stupid son of a bitch! I found this Nugent guy, and I grabbed him, and I jacked him up against the wall. I said, what the hell were you thinking? And he said, who are you? No, it's not going to grow back. This was his contribution to the revolution. This is his new badge of honor. Not the full and fluffy tail, but the stunted, black, and scarred tail, which is his, if you will, red badge of courage, his symbol of heroism, his new pride. Had it not been for that single line, that would be the perfect story. It would have been spectacular. And I told Tom about this years ago. I said, dude, reprint that story, just instead of saying it's okay, it'll grow back, just, have him nod and smile. Just have him smile. That's all you gotta do. I get very emotional over that. I said to him, why? Why did you do that? And he said, well, I felt sorry for the character. Yes, so do we, your readers. We are deeply invested in this character and want to see him become the hero. We don't want to see him, have a nice feelings assuaged here. No, he doesn't need the lush tale for his pride. He's got something much more meaningful now. Now, I haven't spoken to Tom for years, and I really, really hope that he did take my advice there. Whew. Any questions? Yes?
Are you sure that wasn't supposed to be a joke?
If it was a joke, then I feel bad for jacking him up against the wall. Because the story was pristine up to that point. It's like, it's like you're watching Star Wars, and then all of a sudden, Luke gets up there and hits the thing, and the Death Star doesn't blow up, but then the Empire says, nah, we don't feel like destroying a planet today, and then leaves, roll credits. You'd be sitting there thinking, dude, the hell, I didn't pay my $3 for... That's how old I am. So, I don't think it was a joke. Tom is too good a writer to try to make a joke out of that, believe me. Other question? If not, I hope that there has been at least some tiny pearl of wisdom in here. Again, I don't consider myself a perfect writer. I'm just an experienced writer. I'm not going to claim that absolutely everything I said is complete gospel. The only thing you can do is try it out for yourself. Give your story to somebody who's a friend, but not so good a friend that they're just going to say, oh, it's nice. Give it to somebody who's going to tell you what the story needs, like that line, what the story will need to make it perfect. And I will leave you with one small homework assignment. And those of you who know what I'm talking about, zip your lips, because there's always some asshole out there that blurts it out. So don't! Go find the movie Throw Mama from the Train. Throw Mama from the Train is a Danny DeVito film from the 90s, I believe. It is not only a hilarious romp of a comedy, but it is a very, very clever dissertation on the creative writing process. And I highly recommend it both for entertainment and for educational value. And with that, I thank you very much for your kind attention this morning.
Silver Gattoman, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gattoman, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Silver Gattoman, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.